Okay, Dr. Lacefield, thank you very much, and thanks to Dow. Now, I do have one follow-up question. I know I got 5 minutes, but I got to ask this. The biggest point I've come away in this symposium was what Dr. Marvin Hall said was planting too deep is the #1 reason for stand failure. The reason I remember that was when you said that, this beautiful lady behind you gave this fella the elbow. And the only question I have is, are you okay? Okay. I know you didn't plant too deep, but that's what I came up with. Well, anyway, the one thing, and I'm going to try to work this here, Dr. Lacefield, make sure I get it right, but I think part of the reason what we do is what we know and what we like. And Clayton's a great hay producer, and I'd have to say that's probably what he loves and what he likes. But I'm in the beef cattle business. That's what I love and what I like. But I'm in Virginia. We've got a cow-calf grazing operation. So this is what works for me. Now, my first one, what is the most profitable thing we can do? And it may sound so simple, but I go through Virginia, all different states, and we have all this wonderful resource that goes unmanaged. So my #1 profitable thing to do is simply fencing and water systems. And I've got this thing that says, don't be the little Dutch boy. Now, we know all the benefits of rotational grazing, all the profitable things we can do, nutrient recycling, but my fence and water, to me, is the same as a hay baler is to Mr. Gerald's. This is how I harvest my equipment. Unless I can control these cattle and do what I need to do, you can forget everything else. And my belief is that we can graze every acre, in most cases, that we have available to us. It is a significant cost to put in fencing and water systems, but if I look at the agricultural technologies over the past several years, take seed corn, for instance. Back in the early 80s, I could sell seed corn for $70 a unit. It has now gone to $300 a unit or more. And we used to plant 18,000 seeds per acre, now maybe 30 to 35. We have obviously advanced the technology, but those cost-benefit ratios have changed. Hay balers used to be $4,000 when cattle were $65. Now they're $40,000, and fat cattle are $1.30. I can take these cost-benefit ratios on these fencing technologies and do more for that dollar than a lot of other things. These watering systems, we just had the polar vortex go over Virginia. We had sub-zero temperatures. I had a waterer that did not have cattle drinking out of it. No, I had a heat tube going down in the ground. And what happened was, as I went out there, turned cattle into that field, I pushed down on these blue balls here, and the thing was not frozen. Those are the simple technologies we have. But everything I can do with grazing comes to this. We've got to get our infrastructure in place. Secondly, good grazing management. Now, I bought the fencing with my wallet. I've got another resource right up here called intellectual property rights. We have got to be able to utilize our intellectual property rights. Once you get the system up, you have to manage the cattle, and that's basically a decision-making process. It doesn't cost $1 out of your pocket, but we have to take advantage of this if we're going to make profitability. Now, we've heard about good grazing management. I'm going to say that my grazing system rests on 4 principles. Early turnout, creek grazing, summer stockpile, winter stockpile. I have fescue end-of-fight pastures. I turn out early because I want to knock, and when I say that, probably earlier than recommended, because I want to try to knock these end-of-fight fescues in the head so that I can change the species composition. I can get some bluegrass and clover coming in. This is a picture of one of my pastures, no overseeding of clover. It just naturally comes in Virginia. So I can affect quality, I can affect species. Creek grazing. Beef cattle operation, obviously the cows have a lower nutritional need than the calves. A single wire this high off the ground, creek grazing, you can put the nutrition where it needs to be. Summer stockpile. I've talked about this before, that we need to understand in some form or fashion that summer stockpiling, in my opinion, I graze everything that I have, is a critical precursor to successful fall stockpiling winter grazing programs. Just as Dr. Marvin Hall said, you do not wake up on a Monday, go to the store, buy a seed on a Tuesday, and plant it on a Wednesday. You've got to plan about a year out. In my opinion, if we're going to have successful winter grazing programs, is where the cost of beef cattle operations are, I start planning that out day one of the grazing system. I do not wake up on July 29th saying I'm going to put nitrogen on August 1 to have a successful stockpiling program. The past 15 to 20 years, we've had what I think is fairly good, successful winter stockpiling programs. So the fourth leg of my grazing strategy is to create winter stockpile to reduce our cost of feed. But all of these other things that we do is a precursor to that. Second, I buy my hay. Now, I can probably get by with a little bit less quality, because if I'm only feeding 10 or 15 days, I basically want to try to get them to get something through the winter. So if I get a little off on quality, it isn't that bad. But this is some good old cowboy arithmetic. I don't think we think about all this on this hay production. I have a lot of benefits. Number one, when I buy the hay, I say I buy one, I get three free. So this is what happens. When I buy the hay, I still have the forage that I would have made hay with. I can still graze that. So I've got a ton of feed I can graze plus a ton of feed that I bought. The second thing is I get free fertilizer. Now, one of my top 5 is not soil fertility, but in fact, I do believe you have to get fertility up to a medium level, get your pH right, get your phosphorus, potassium in the moderate range. But my hay is my fertilizer. I strategically feed that hay based on soil fertility when I feed the cattle. The third free one here, longer rest period. This is something I don't think we truly think about. One of the things I do in my operation is risk management. So if I have 20 acres of grass that I would have made hay on and I decide to graze it, I have 20 acres more acres of grazing. And I can potentially increase that rest period, particularly through the summer months. And when we get hot and dry, we need to increase these rest periods, reduce our risk, and give those other pastures time to rest, so when we do get the moisture coming back, they pop right back up. This is something I think profitability we very, very seldom consider as a benefit when you purchase your own hay. Now we're going to get into the little teary-eyed part. But, you know, NRCS is on this deal now talking about soil health. And this is what I found out. And I cannot tell you why, but over time, rotational grazing has changed the soil health on my farm, where I believe I'm getting more productivity and higher quality feeds. Why is that? Am I increasing organic matter? I don't know. But I can tell you that over time, as we rotationally graze these pastures, they're becoming more and more resilient, and I absolutely believe it has something to do with soil health. Now, my objective is to see, we talk about these qualitative things, but money and profitability is quantitative. So I want to understand, how do we improve soil health? How do we understand it? And how do we actually appreciate the economic benefits of it? How do we quantify that? I do believe I'm getting more and more efficient nitrogen recycling going on in these pastures, and to me that's a direct relationship of soil health. I have intentionally over time, once I jumpstart these systems, get adequate fertility, really do believe that letting these clovers work, getting the nitrogen in the system, I do believe in the long term that is the most profitable way to go with these pasture systems, and that all comes back to soil health. Now, This is the type of sprayer that I have, a little bit different than what Clayton had. But now I'm not an now I can show you some that go on the back of a four-wheeler. But a good sprayer, now let me back up. We may have some organic producers in here, they're trying to do a niche market. I control weeds with proper grazing, proper fertility, all these other things, but every once in a while, to get maximum productivity, I have to spray. But if you're going to use these products, you got to put them down at the right time. You got to have your boom heights right, your pressure right, your nozzles right, your spacings right. And if you don't, you can use the best chemistry in the world, and these things won't work to their maximum efficiency. And I was in the agribusiness for years, and I've been on both sides of this thing. And the fact of the matter is, when you need spraying, everybody else does. And I can take a 30-foot boom, what this is, and I can cover maybe 100 to 120 acres in a day. And you work the math out on that running a 50-horsepower tractor, that's a pretty good return on investment, plus I'm getting the efficiency. And there are some times that I've just got to spray to get maximum productivity. And you're talking about rock. You go over a rock pile with a 15-foot batwing bush hog, or put this spray boom up about like this and see which one causes the most damage. And plus, the gentleman said, I'm destroying dry matter when I'm bush hogging with this. And by the way, a weed is something the cattle will not utilize. My cattle eat lamb's quarter. They'll eat ragweed when they're young. I've controlled ragweed with grazing, but every once in a while, I've got to get the sprayer out there. But Dr. Lacefield, that is it. I appreciate that, and we'll go from there.